Well, I just posted that Luffy mini podcast a couple minutes ago. Let's see what the response is. Jesus Christ! People are a little salty. I'll be addressing comments to that episode at the end of this episode. But let's go ahead and have the episode first. This is Canon Eaters. And this is a name I came up with today because I was watching the Normie's latest reaction to the latest episode of Battlestar Galactica. I think it was episode 6 of season 4. And it reveals something about Kara is the harbinger of doom. She's going to bring the destruction of humanity or whatever. Which was something, the show's been gone. The show's been out for years. So sorry if you got spoiled. It's not worth your time. Don't watch Battlestar Galactica. It's funny because I watched reactions up until past the halfway mark of season 4, and then I stopped because that's when it really, really starts to shit the bed. So then I'm just done. I don't watch reactions anymore to it because it's bad. That show's not worth watching. Anyway, there's a movie between seasons 3 and 4 called Razor. And so they watched it between seasons 3 and 4. And mostly it was backstory that had already taken place and everything was resolved. So the movie's about shit that happened in season 2, right? I think it was season 2. And here we are at the end of season 3 going into season 4. So 98% of the movie is just about that. And then 2% foreshadows what's going to happen in season 4 because they talk about Kara being the harbinger of destruction, essentially. So that's the only thing you get out of the movie. Other than the fact you enjoy watching a good movie. Okay. So then during this reaction, they gave you the same information as in the movie. Kara is the harbinger of destruction or whatever. So. And then Navi said, so I guess we waste our time watching the movie. And that just really went up my ass. And so that's that right then. I stopped the reaction, wrote my show notes, and I'm still mad. Like hours later, I'm just gonna record this podcast today. I didn't intend to. I have other shit to do. I have editing to do and stuff. This is supposed to be an editing day, but I have to record this because it just went straight up my ass, and it's something that's been cooking in the back of my mind for weeks, months, probably years, because it encompasses a much bigger problem that I'm going to get into during the course of this podcast. And basically, I think that there are just too many canon eaters out there. Like, all I want is canon. All I want is canon. Anything not directly related to canon, get me out of here. I'm just going to eat canon. That's it. That's all I want. I want point A to point B. That's it. As fast as we can. Why don't you just go flip to the last page of the book and read the last page of the book then? People just want the ending as fast as humanly possible. And I don't understand this. I'm basically on their side for the most part. I've talked many times. Hell, I just bitched recently in Night of the Seven Kingdoms that they wasted our time with a stupid ass anime flashback in the battle episode. They show a little bit of the battle, then they spend 20 minutes with some bullshit ass anime flashback, and then they get back to the effing battle. It pissed me off. So I literally was talking out the other side of my mouth, arguing the opposite point just a couple weeks ago. But two things can be true at the same time. The problem, and once I calmed down and thought about it, and because you can have a first blush reaction, that's just not a valid reaction. It's not logical. It's not thought out. My anger was misplaced. The issue actually wasn't the flashback. It was where they put it. If they had started the episode with the flashback, I realized this after the fact. If you just started the episode with the flashback, and then at the end of the flashback, you start with the battle, I would have been completely fine with that. What really pissed me off was they gave you 3 minutes of the fight, then 20 minutes of flashback, and then back to the fight for the rest of the episode. And that is just stupid ass pacing. That's terrible. That was the actual problem. It wasn't the material, because I did go back and watch the material. I watched the whole flashback. The flashback was good. It was good information. It was important information. You could have accomplished exactly the same thing if you had started with the flashback. Did the battle complete, as one thing, and then there's a certain point where they call back to the flashback, where he's like, get up. Then you could just show a couple seconds of the flashback again to remind you. Rather than, because there's 2 times he has to get up, so you can show it twice. You could do the flashback, the 3 minutes they showed us in their version, then the get up, and then continue the battle after that quick little 2-second get up. That's the way to do it, man. That was what I actually had a problem with. I didn't have a problem with the fact it was a filler. It took me a while to get there, so I could be just as reactionary as everybody else. And so maybe it was just. I'm not blaming Navi or the normies or anything. I love them. It could be an instant response, like I had a couple weeks ago. I had a complete crash out meltdown. Most of it is not available. I have not posted it because it's bad. I was really pissed, and I don't think it'd be fun to watch. I was just salty. I wasn't entertaining mad. I wasn't funny mad. I was just mad. Not fun to watch. So I get it that could just be an off the cuff, just minor irritation in the moment. Well, why do we do that? But the idea that we sat through a movie to get this 2% of information, and so now that they showed that information in this actual show, the episodic series, then the movie was a waste of time. Let's get into that. The thing is, we watch shit, whether it's reactions, movies, TV shows, listen to audio plays, listen to podcasts, read comics, read books, listen to plays, listen to musicals, whatever. All the things you consider art and entertainment. All of it. Even if it's posting on Reddit, scrolling Blue Sky or Twitter or whatever, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all these things are under the same umbrella of we watch shit to push aside the existential horror of this sorry ass world we live in. We don't want to think about our impending death. We're all gonna die. Like we're gonna not be here anymore at some point, and that is a black void that is hurtling towards us faster every day. We don't want to think about that shit. So what do? We do anything but think about it, which means we watch a bunch of shit. You're watching this podcast now for that reason. Other reasons, but there's other things you could be watching, but you are watching whatever the hell it is you're watching, listening to, reading, ingesting somehow. If they had a form of entertainment that was just smells, we would have, I guess, a scratch and sniff book counts. They don't do those anymore, do they? Scratch and sniff books. I don't think so. Maybe we've lost the technology, possibly. But they don't last, too, right? Like, I don't think you can pull out a 30-year-old scratch and sniff book and it still work. So, probably the turnover is just what killed it. They don't have choose your own adventure books anymore, too, I don't think. But, we do it all for the same reason. We're just trying to pass the time, man. We're trying to have fun. Our shitty job, our shitty family, our shitty relationship. Like, not all this is true for everybody. You may have a wonderful relationship, but a shitty job. You may have a great job, but a shitty relationship. You may have no relationship and no job, but the weather is shitty. Or your health is shitty, or whatever. We all have something we're running away from. It's not the same for everybody. I'm just, painting with a wide brush here. We all have something we're running away from, and so we turn to entertainment to run away from whatever that is. So that's if we break it down. That we want to pass the time, man. Like, look, we got 2 hours till dinner. I don't really feel like doing anything. I could work, but I don't feel like it. Why don't I just watch something? For me personally, one reason I don't think I would be quite as obsessed with reaction channels if what I'm about to tell you wasn't true. But I have software my editing program can take 20 minutes to boot up and be ready to use. 20 minutes. And I can't do shit on my computer while it's booting up. I can't do nothing. Because there's this box that comes up, loading, and you can't get rid of it. You can't, loading, it's there. You can't move it, and you can't see anything behind it. It basically wipes out. Once you start loading this goddamn program, you're stuck. There's nothing you can do with your computer. So, I'm out of books, and I don't want to do any of these digital books things, because I just can't afford a monthly subscription. Everything's a goddamn subscription right now. So what I do, I watch YouTube videos. And so reactions are perfect because, like I said, 20 minutes. A lot of reaction videos are around 20 minutes. Especially if you skip the stupid-ass recap intro and you don't bother with the outro where they spend 20 minutes fumbling around, not understanding the show. I just want to see the actual reaction. Typically, if it's a 30-minute video, 20 minutes is the reaction. So I start up my editing program. I sit here and I watch a reaction. By the time I'm done with the reaction, the editing, okay, now I can work. Awesome. There's a browser that could take just as long. Google Chrome is it's so goddamn slow on my computer. So it can take 10 minutes to boot up. I click it 10 minutes for effing browser to open. It's stupid. I hate using it. But it has certain built-in functions I can't get on Firefox or anything else I use, right? So I'm switched between different browsers for different purposes. So Google Chrome has its uses. And let me see. Well, if I sometimes I have to reboot the computer. The rebooting process can take 20 minutes. These are all times when it's perfect for me to just go watch a video. I'm passing the time, right? So it's not a huge time commitment. I don't want to sit here and think and go through all the mistakes I've made in my life, or think my stupid thoughts, or the existential horror shit I was talking about. I don't want to face none of that. So I need something to occupy this pudding I call my brain. So I pick up my phone and I watch a video, a reaction video. This is my escape. It's not a waste of time. It's a way for me to get from point A to point B in my life. Point A is I start the program. Point B, the program's ready. I have a 20-minute block. I need to do something. I don't want to just sit here and look at the walls, right? So I watch something. So to various degrees, this may or may not apply to you as much as it does to me, but to various degrees, we watch shit just to watch shit, okay? There is no higher purpose here. There's no better or worse use of our time. Like, it doesn't matter what I do for that 20 minutes while I'm waiting for this stupid program to load. The real work happens when the program is finished loading. So that's when I start being useful and productive to society. Creating content for other people to run away from their lives, right? In the meantime, I'm looking for ways to run away from my life. Work is one of them. Watching the videos is another, right? So that 20 minutes is dead time I have to occupy. Which brings me to my next point. What is so important? What are you doing with your precious ass time? I'm not necessarily you. Right here. You. Not necessarily you. But everybody who bitches about wasting their time watching a movie, wasting their time watching filler, why are they doing this remake of a movie? It's a waste of time. All these similar conversations, which basically is talking about entertainment as a waste of time. As if that was a negative. A pejorative use of waste of time directed at entertainment. It's all wasting time, man. Citizen Kane, whatever you think, Inception, whatever your choice is for the best movie ever made, is a waste of time. That's the whole point. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pass the time. Worst case scenario, the worst movie you've ever watched, at least you passed 90 minutes of your life. Even if you were bored, it was probably better than thinking your thoughts, right? So, what is so precious about your time that you can't have it be wasted by filler? Oh my God, that time they spent watching that movie, The Razor, was an entertaining ass movie. I love the actress. They brought in an actress just for the movie. We got to see some more Admiral Kane. That was we got to see the backstory of the shit that happened before the Pegasus met up with the fleet. It was very entertaining. It was a fun movie. There was great visuals. There was a couple cool ass battles we watched. A lot of great interpersonal drama. And then they had a present day story that was happening as well as the flashbacks. That was entertaining. It was a fun 90-minute, 2-hour movie. It's like, oh, we wasted our time watching the movie. Because it only had the 2% information they gave us was in the rest of the series. So I just don't like that. I don't like the implication that anything you watch is a waste of time. Like, I fundamentally disagree with it for the reasons I've listed. And filler is the same thing. This becomes such a topic of conversation in the last 10 years. It's used as a pejorative. This is filler, that's filler. And people are using it wrong. Filler is supposed to be the intended usage of the word is if you can say you have episode 37 is canon, okay? Episode 38 is filler, and episode 39 is canon again, okay? If you can go from episode 37 to episode 39, not watch 38, and miss nothing and not be confused, then episode 38 was filler. That's the dictionary definition of filler. As far as, it's not just the overall story, it's character progressions, situations. If you go from 37 and they're living in a houseboat, and you go to 39 and they're in the Arctic on a sailboat, a different boat in a different location, what the hell is happening, how they get there, and they don't explain it like in a flashback or a conversation, then you miss something important. Episode 38 was not filler if that's what happens. So it's not just that there's nothing for the main plot, like the big bad's not in it, or they didn't find a weapon to kill the big bad in it. It has to also be that there's no character progression. There's no location progression, physical progression from one location to another. There's no situational change that would otherwise go unexplained. So most people are talking about if in episode 38 they burn all their clothes and they move out of the houseboat and they go to take a sailboat to Antarctica, but the big bad was in the episode and they find no weapon against the big bad, then that's filler. Because all they care about is the big bad and the mystery. Maybe they're trying to find out the identity of one of their people who has amnesia or something. And so they don't find out anything about the amnesia in 38. But where the hell are their clothes? Where's the houseboat? And why are they in the Arctic? You know? Things have changed. So it's not filler. If you have character progression, you have situation progression, you have geographical progression, or you have anything else that goes unexplained if you haven't seen the episode, then it's not goddamn filler. But so that whole conversation has become twisted and broken because people just they're so wrongly using the word filler. So that's one of the other annoying things. But okay, let's say we're using the conversation correctly. We're using the word filler. It's just an episode of the characters, and nothing changes from the beginning to the end of the episode. We have a reset. Status quo is God. You can go from 37 to 39 and not even know that episode is missing because the characters don't change, the location doesn't change, the situation doesn't change. There's no new information learned. Nothing about the big bad. Nothing about any progressing mysteries or any other ongoing stories. It's just an episode. It contributes nothing to the overall story other than you spend time with the characters. That's it. That's filler. But what is wrong with that? If you love these characters, and I typically do, why don't you want to see more of them? The only problem I've had with anime filler is some of it is really bad. Like the plot is bad, doesn't make any sense. They have powers that don't make any sense. Characters will be introduced that we'll never see again because it's filler, right? I don't like that. I've avoided filler for certain shows. But, for instance, with One Piece, I've watched every single episode of One Piece, other than they had some recap episodes. But I've watched everything else because I enjoy it. I enjoy spending time with the characters. I enjoy being with the characters. I enjoy the characters. So, that's not a waste of time. My time I consider my time very valuable, and I get really annoyed in real life, with people who waste my time. In whatever form that is, anything that's taking me away from what I want to do, it annoys me, especially when it's frivolous. And so I'll tell people to their face, you don't respect my time, And so I've had some tension with people in the past year for wasting my time. But if I choose to watch something, that's not a waste of my precious time, right? At the end of the day, I'm not saving lives here. I'm not inventing something that's going to get us to Mars or whatever. I'm just making my work is important to me, but it's not important to the world, right? So I do have perspective here. It's important to me, but the time I spend watching something, if it's not waiting for something to boot up, maybe it's because I'm screen recording, so I have to be out of the room, so I'm in another room watching something, or I'm doing dishes or cooking. I've got something on there. I need to do something. I'm doing something else. I'm multitasking, so I'll have an essay or a podcast that I'm listening to. That's not a waste of time. So, basically what I'm saying here is, if you enjoy the characters, even if nothing in an episode it is a literal dictionary definition of a filler episode, and like I said, and it doesn't progress anything, you can still enjoy the time with the characters. Now, if that's not fun to you, you don't enjoy spending time with characters, you just want the answers to the mysteries, you just want to see the big bad get their ass kicked, maybe you're not invested in the story or the characters, then yeah, I guess filler would be a waste of your time. That's okay. I'm just talking about me. And I am saying some people's attitudes annoy me. But if there is a situation where you're not invested in the characters, and you just want answers, and that's the only reason you're watching, and you You just, oh, who's the big bad? Why they have amnesia? This cool thing. What's the explanation for this cool time travel thing we saw, or this ghost or whatever? And that's all you want. Then yeah, I guess it's filler is a waste of your time. I understand that. That's fine. But I do think there's a segment of the population who hasn't really given it any thought. They're just kind of parroting what they've seen other people say. They're parroting other people's ideas. Filler bad. Ooh, filler bad. They just automatic. They don't even think about it. Maybe they do love the characters. They want to know the answers to the mystery. They want to see the big bad get their ass kicked. They want to know why the ghost is there or whatever. But they also love the characters, and they probably would really enjoy watching a filler, but they have talked themselves out of it because the hive mind, the public, all of them have said that filler is bad, and you want to go with the crowd, okay? So I think maybe some people are screwing themselves out of something they would actually have fun. Change the way you look at it. Examine it. Well, don't change. I'm not really trying to change anybody. I don't give a shit if you change or not. I don't give a shit what you do. But I would say it could be useful to re-examine your preconceptions. I do it all the time. Re-examine your motivation for why you don't like something. Because maybe you were just going with the crowd. We all do it. I've done it. I've gone with the crowd. Then I examine. I'm like, wait a minute. F that. I don't want to do that. Or I want to do that. And I don't care that these people don't want to do that. Right? So basically the point of this is I'm asking you to re-examine your motivation. What you consider a waste of your time. Is that even a thing? A waste of your time. And maybe filler is something you would actually enjoy. Because I think this is symptomatic of a larger problem. When I first started One Piece, people were telling me you don't want to watch One Piece because at the time it was like 1,120 episodes. 1,120 episodes. Like, that's too much to watch. And at first, this is one of the things where I was going along with the crowd. At first, I actually said, no, I'm not going to watch One Piece. I resisted watching One Piece at first because I was going with the crowd. Because I didn't examine my preconceptions. I didn't examine why I was making a decision. I just made a decision. So for people tried to talk me into watching One Piece for like at least half a year, maybe longer. Klaus paid me to watch the first 15 episodes. And he was, I kind of got hooked. He was right. And then he stayed on my ass. I eventually started watching it. And, the rest is history. But it's also, I examined my preconceptions. Because at first, the idea of watching 1,120 episodes of anything seemed ridiculous. It seemed stupid. So then I re-examined that idea. I pushed back on it and changed my mind. Because I was like, okay, over the next few years, I'm going to watch 1,120 episodes of something. Maybe it'll be 10 different anime. Each anime is 105 episodes. I watch 10 of them. That's going to be 1,100 whatever episodes, right? So I'm watching, eventually in my life, I will watch 1,120 episodes of something. What difference does it make if it's one anime or 10 anime? What does it matter? Why? If you enjoy the characters. Now, maybe you get tired of it. Okay, I'm just tired of seeing these people. These people are repetitive. The stories are repetitive. I don't feel like we're going anywhere. I couldn't watch 21 seasons of Grey's Anatomy or whatever the hell they're up to. 20 episodes a season, 10 seasons would be 200, so they're not even close. Even with them being an hour and anime being 20 minutes. Still, we're talking 600-700 hours. 600 or 700 hours of a show. But I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, I've never seen a single second of Grey's Anatomy. Maybe I'm wrong. But I feel like it'd be repetitive as hell. Super repetitive. Because it's hospital, illnesses. What can you do after 20 seasons, right? I don't know. But I just feel like that'd be super repetitive. But the thing is with anime, if I watch a series that has 100 episodes, okay, I sit there and watch the series. That would be 10% of One Piece, right? Now I have to go find a new series, which means I go watch something, 2 episodes, that sucks. So go watch this, that sucks. This I'm okay with. It's all right. I can take it or leave it. Finally, oh my God, this is awesome. So after 4 tries, I find something I really like. That has 100 episodes, so I watch that. Repeat the process. Oh, this sucks. That sucks. I wasted time watching half of this. Okay, yeah, here's something I finally love again. Okay, now I can watch that 100 episodes. So I do that 10 times. I've watched the same number of episodes I would have watched of One Piece, but I had that bullshit of like trying to find another thing I really liked in between the series, right? So it took me a long time to get from series 1 to series 2 because I had to find this other shit. I had to watch this other crap. And sometimes it just isn't something out there, right? So it's much better to fall in love with something that has 1,100 episodes so that you can just watch the 1,100 episodes. You're not watching 10 different anime of 100 episodes. You don't have to find the next one. You already have it. It's the same thing. And so people, and it's not just me, the people that say, I'm not watching One Piece because there's too much to watch, will watch 10 different series of 100 episodes. They've watched the same amount of anime as I have. They watched the same amount of anime as One Piece. They just did it spread out over 10 anime. So you're lying. You do have time to watch 1,100 episodes. You just don't want to watch 1,100 episodes of one thing. Okay, maybe like I said, you're tired or you're not into it. Like Andy's not into One Piece. He watched 100 episodes. He didn't like it. Cool. Don't watch it. Go watch something else. Because if you don't love the show and if you don't love the characters after 100 episodes, get the hell out. Leave. You won't. There's no reason to torture yourself. So those people are just lying to themselves. They don't think about it. They don't think it through. And I didn't think it through when I said, no, I don't want to watch One Piece. And when I thought it through, I realized there's no difference between watching 1,100 episodes of One Piece and 10 animes that are 110 episodes apiece or whatever. There's no difference. It's the same time investment. I'm going to watch 1,100 hours of something at some point or half hours of something. So that's how I look at it, right? So there's that conversation. There's the filler conversation. There's a wasting your time watching shit that doesn't progress the story conversation. So I think that all this combined has created the worst trend in entertainment, which is shorter seasons and more time between seasons. So this attitude, filler sucks. Let's get to the point. All we care about is a serialized story. All we care about is an overall overarching season-long story. All we care about is the big bad and the mystery resolution. Hollywood's like, okay, fine. Here's 13 episodes. No, wait. Let's make it 12 episodes. No. Let's make it 10. No! Let's make it 8. Maybe even 6. And we're only going to do it every 3 years. Kiss my fat, hairy, hillbilly ass. Like, that's the worst trend in entertainment since I've been watching shit. And I've been watching shit since the 70s. Like, god damn, this sucks. The thing was, like, the stories, a lot of the series are better. Severance. Probably, I'm thinking, For All Mankind, Plurbius, some of Silo. That's some of the best entertainment that's come out in a long time. Night of the Seven Kingdoms is on the list. From is really good. What I've seen of it, I've seen half of Welcome to Diaries is really good. These shows are good. They're really high quality. I don't think they'd be less good if they had more episodes. If you had filler episodes, character episodes. Episodes where you can just enjoy the characters. Here's these characters hanging out. They have a little side adventure. They have a side quest. Fallout's another example. Would Fallout have been worse if they had 10 episodes and we got more time with the ghoul? I think he was in a total of like 6 of the 8 episodes in season 1. I don't know. I think we've lost something. And I know that this is the new market, and I've had these conversations on Reddit, and I know this is a reality, that they're doing this because this is how they make money. They've looked at the economic models, streaming services. You get something that has 8 episodes. You spread it out over 2 months. You get the retention. Really, it's 3 months. You start a week or two with a week or two left in 1 month. Run the whole next month. And then you got a week or two of the following month. So you get the subscription for 3 months. You hope they stay, but it doesn't matter because the next show's coming in a few months and they're going to come back for that show. And that's what works. And you can coast on that. Economically, they're doing it this way for a reason. If this wasn't working, they wouldn't do this. So they invest more money in fewer episodes and then they're making money. They don't have the units. They don't have TV shows used to have 20 units per season, 22 units per season, 24 units per season. You think they would make more money that way, but their models show that that's not true. And I don't know. I mean, I guess the quality, as far as they're concerned, wouldn't be as good. Now, I'm not saying we go from 8 episodes a year to 24 episodes a year. But I think the sweet spot was probably 13 episodes. And if you got your 8-episode main story, then the other 5 episodes could be character development, characterization, side quests. You spend more time and you get more entertainment. And it's still, it's still easy to shoot 13 episodes. They were doing 13 episodes a year just a few years ago. All the shows were big, Sons of Anarchy and the shows like that were doing it, Justified. They were doing it, and it was fine. They could produce high quality entertainment. Not necessarily the last couple seasons of Sons of Anarchy, but that wasn't the format. They could produce high quality entertainment at that level. That's probably a sweet spot. 24 is probably too much, and you just can't do it these days. But 8 is ridiculous. 6 is ridiculous, especially then you start talking about every 3 years. So this is what's happened. This whole sentiment, this whole mentality of no filler, don't waste my time, my sweet ass precious time, and just everything has to be the main story, and we have to be super focused, and that's it. That mentality has created the thing everybody seems to hate. I don't think there's very many people out there saying, boy, I love 8 episodes every 3 seasons. Nobody's saying that shit. So we can all agree it's bad, but I think we can't agree on why. Now, a lot of it is just finances, but I think what originally got them to that place was this fan mentality: don't waste our time. Don't waste our sweet, precious ass time. I don't know. So let me know what you think. Do you think you could get tired of characters you love? I don't think so. I don't think I could. I haven't gotten tired of the One Piece characters. Even though some of them annoy me. Like even Sanji, I'm not tired of him, Of course, we're not getting much of him, so maybe that's why. Do you think that there is a case where entertainment wastes your time? I personally can't think of a scenario. I'm sitting there racking my brain trying to think of a scenario where it would literally be a waste of my time. I guess if I spent so much time watching One Piece, which I guess could happen with as many episodes as it is, that I lost my wife and children, then it wasted my time. I guess. I don't know, man. I can't think of an example. But I guess you could say I could have been watching something better. Something I would have enjoyed more. I suppose there's a certain amount of validity to that. But how do you know, right? Like, it's almost, there's almost no way to know without doing it. Now, I guess, like, if you get halfway through something, an episode, and you're like, I don't like this, then switch over to something else. Okay, fine, that's valid. I'm not going to finish watching this because I literally don't give a shit. I know I'll care about this. Let me watch this. I guess that's a case where it'd be wasting your time. But I'm more talking big picture, and I think it's a fan sentiment. And plus, like I said, I think the most important thing I've said here is people will just knee-jerk react. Like I've done, I told you, there's 2 cases I've told you about where my original sentiment towards One Piece and then the way I was towards episode 5 of Night of the Seven Kingdoms, people just knee-jerk react without thinking it through. If we can address that, if you can start interrogating your thoughts, your preconceptions, your mindsets about some of these things, and if you still feel that way after you've interrogated, okay, well then that's how you feel. It's not a knee-jerk reaction, it's just what you truly believe. But maybe you'll change your mind like I have. Alright, well, that's enough ranting about that. Let's go ahead and get to addressing feedback from the second mini podcast, which was about Luffy being a trash protagonist. Now, there is a sentiment here in the comments. People generally disagree, but I think, I think this certainly applies to Hunter and a couple other people. You got to understand that basically what I was saying, if I can boil it down to too long didn't read, I'm saying that Luffy breaks all the rules of being a good protagonist, and yet he still works. He still works as a good protagonist. And so I was looking at that, right? And so I think people just heard the first half, and a lot of times people leave comments before they finish listening, so that's fine. But people just heard the first half and didn't hear the conclusion, which was, even though he breaks all the rules and he shouldn't work, he does work. He's a great protagonist. But he did break the rules. And you got to know what the rules are, right? So, in order to break them. And I think the author does know. That's how he's able to do it. But also, another thing that I think got lost in the sauce here is that It's not any one of these. You know, I gave 5 reasons why he's a bad protagonist. You can't address one of those and then say that makes him a good protagonist. The problem isn't that he broke any one of these rules. The problem is he broke all 5. So it'd be okay if he broke 1, if he broke 2, if he broke 3. Once you start talking about 4 and 5, that, you know, collectively that makes it a much bigger problem, or it should have, but it ended up not. So, for instance, talking about, well, there are other people who have been dumb and been protagonists. Like, I said that myself. Lunk, oh, sorry, Dunk. Dunk the Lunk is a moron, but he's still a good protagonist because that's one of the only things that's wrong with him as far as you're breaking the rules. So, it's not that so people were coming at me from one of the things I said and saying, see, this one thing's wrong, so he's a good protagonist. The problem is he was breaking all 5. It wasn't any one of them. Any one of them would have been okay. And like I said, as it turns out, even breaking all 5 is okay, but don't try this at home if you're a writer. That's all I'm saying. So let's get to the comments. These first batch are from Hunter. It looks like 5. The first 5 are from Hunter Stone. We don't really like dumbass characters. I think the many fans of the many dumbass anime protagonists will disagree with you there. But here's the thing. Are they fans of the protagonist because he's a dumbass? Because he's a dumbass. Or are they fans of the protagonist in spite of him being a dumbass? That's the question. I don't think there's anybody I like because they're a moron. Characters. Some of them are, maybe that's wrong because some of them are funny because they're morons, but like Goku, I've seen a little bit of Goku. Do people like him because he's a moron, or do they like him because he has heart, because he's really strong? You know, I don't know that I've seen enough to know what his other attributes are. Do you like Goku because he's a moron? Do you like Luffy because he's a moron? Now, I will admit, him being a moron has been very funny on many occasions. So maybe part of the reason I like him is because he's a moron. I don't think so. Him being a moron for me is more frustrating than it is funny. But the reason I like him is because he has a unique personality. He has a big heart. And what he wants is super relatable, right? And he can be funny in ways that when he's not a moron. But see, I don't like the fact he has no curiosity. You know, and then he gets bored when people explain really cool shit. And he's over there sleeping. You like that? Is that what you like about him? Seriously? I find that hard to believe. I don't think there's many people who like him because he's a moron. They like him in spite of him being a moron. I think, yes, this would be a problem if the protagonist was dumb in a non-comedy. Well, see, yeah, you're saying that the comedic aspect of it really does lessen the blow, and I think you're probably right about that. And God, imagine a moron in a non-comedy. That would be very painful. I don't even know how it would be a non-comedy. It'd just be sad, right? In a drama, the mafia is just running rings around this guy. He's trying to escape the mafia with the girl, and they're just running rings around and catching him every time. You know, just somehow he lucks out of being murdered, but he can't get away because he's so stupid. That'd just be sad, right? That would be sad. Like, I don't think it would even work as a non-comedy. It would probably be so sad it'd end up being funny again, right? But since One Piece and so many other anime have comedic elements, I don't think it's a fault. Not everybody should see every possible way out of a situation. Either way, Luffy has had a lot of emotional and battle intelligence. Luffy is an example of someone being smart in a different way. My problem with him, the reason I call him a moron, is because he's completely uncurious. Which is wild, because he loves seeing new things. Right? Ooh, wow, I've never seen that before. Those trees are floating. Ooh, these fish have wings. These people have wings. He loves seeing new shit. He loves seeing cool shit, right? But he's not curious. He doesn't ask questions. He's not intellectually curious. You know, he's actually the opposite if anybody tries to explain anything. So, I think the biggest sign of what I would call a person being a moron is they have no curiosity whatsoever. No intellectual curiosity whatsoever. I've known people like this. They're the most boring people in the world. I don't like them. I don't like being around them. And they're usually the dumbest people. Because if you're not curious, you're not going to learn new things. So you just don't know anything. You don't give a shit that you don't know. But as far he has what they call street smarts, you know, and I don't think he has emotional intelligence, does he? Let me try to think. There's been a couple cases where he did just. I remember remarking on it when it happened. He displayed a certain amount of emotional intelligence that kind of shocked me. I'll be honest with you. I was like, damn, I don't think I expected that from him. So yeah, I mean, but again, this is just one aspect. It's one of 5 things that's wrong. So you combine it all up, that's when you start having a major problem. If you hate dumbass protagonists, you should love Death Note. Those protagonists have 0 dumbasses in them. That's true. But again, 1 thing out of 5. That's what I keep saying. It's not just 1 thing. It's 5. We look at the protagonists of Death Note. What were my 5 things? Let me refresh my memory here real quick. He's a dumbass. He doesn't grow. His character is flat. He's passive, has no plans. Your protagonist, your comic relief should not be the same person. Actually, it's just 4 things. The 5th is, even though he breaks these 4 rules, he's still an awesome character, right? So I had 5 bullet points, but only 4 things wrong with it. So the 4 things. Okay, so Light is not a dumbass. He doesn't grow. His character is flat. That is true. I don't think he grows. Now, I only saw half the series. But he had no character progression. He had no progression whatsoever, other than maybe he got more and more evil. But he kind of felt that way the whole time. So he breaks rule number 2. He's not passive. And he's not the comic relief. So he only breaks 1 of the 4 rules. Breaking 1 of the 4 rules is fine, like I said. If Luffy was only a dumbass and he didn't break these other rules, there would be no problem. The problem with Light is he was too smart. So I mean, everything's a spectrum. Everything's a bell curve. Nothing can be 100 or 0. Like we don't live in a world where everything's black and white or anything's black and white. So just because you don't want your character to be a dumbass doesn't mean if they're a super genius, galaxy brain, then that's good, right? Any extreme is bad. Luffy is one extreme, complete dumbass. Light is the other extreme, galaxy brain, super genius. Both are boring, right? So he's on the other end of the spectrum. That's one of the problems with him. And his character's flat. And he just knows things he shouldn't know, just like his adversary knows things he shouldn't know. Jesus, that show sucks. I don't think it sucks only because of the protagonist. I think the other problem with that is Light and the whatever the other guy's name is are basically the same character. They're both super genius galaxy brains. So you ever see a show where it felt like everybody was talking out of the same mouth? It's different characters, but all the dialogue sounds the same. Kind of like that in a way, you know. It's I don't know. That show blows. Your protagonist and your comic relief should not be the same person. You're no fun. Well, it's just about what makes engaging material, right? I think, and like I'm sure I explained, I don't remember specifically, but I'm sure I explained, if your comic relief is a side character, then you could do a lot more drama and have your protagonist be a lot more emotionally relatable. Because if your protagonist gets his heart broken and he's like, oh, I'm just so sad, it's going to hit you a lot harder if in previous episodes he wasn't talking out of his ass. Like Ace Ventura, getting sad and heartbroken doesn't move the needle for me because I just saw him talking out of his ass. You know? So it doesn't hit the same. But if Ace Ventura's best friend was the protagonist and Ace Ventura was just a side comedy relief and the best friend protagonist gets sad, okay, he wasn't the one talking out of his ass. He wasn't the one flying around in clouds giggling, right? So that's why it lands. That's why this is a rule. It's just easier to emotionally engage your audience if they're separate people. Now, if you're a genius like the writer of One Piece, it doesn't matter. You could have him talking out of his ass, flying around the clouds, and then when he's crawling up the mountain with Nami on his back, I'm still going to cry. Brooke could be, let me see your panties, and I'm still going to cry when he's thinking about playing the piano and his crew's dying around him. Because the man's a genius. Odo is an effing genius. He can do that. He can break all the rules. You don't try that at home. None of us. I ain't trying it, and you shouldn't try it either. I'm making your life easier if you're a writer. That's all I'm saying. Make your life easier for yourself. Don't break all the goddamn rules. Let the rules work for you, not against you. That's all I'm saying. I don't agree with anything on this podcast. And this kind of hits a larger point, right? I'm here for the conversation. I'm not here for yes men. I've mentioned this many times before, but some of you, like this Luffy podcast, um, got a lot of more views. It's got a lot more views than any of my other podcasts so far. So we've stepped on a landmine there. So people I've never seen before are coming in and commenting. So just for those kind of people, if they came back for this one, what I'm going to say is that I want you to disagree with me. I want you to push back. I want you to challenge my ideas because that's an interesting conversation. I don't need people to tell me what I already think. I don't need people to agree with what I think. Now, if you do agree with me, great. That's cool. And we probably should agree on at some point about something, or what the hell are we doing here? But I'm not afraid of people disagreeing with me. I'm not emotionally invested in people agreeing with me. It doesn't hurt my feelings or piss me off when people disagree with me. When people tell me I'm wrong, I don't care. At least I know you're honest when you say that shit. Because I have no patience with mindless ass kissers. I don't. That doesn't move the needle for me. So at least I know when you're disagreeing with me that we're having a real conversation here. That doesn't mean always disagree with me or be belligerent or be an asshole about it. No, Hunter's always respectful. That I would like us to be respectful to each other, but intellectual disagreements are the fuel that burn my fire, right? Like, because we can have a conversation. I may not change my opinion, but I could. I'm open to change my opinion. Now, 40 years of writing experience tell me this is one of the more solid foundations I've ever been on for a podcast. Because these are things, I didn't make up these rules. These are things that are taught to me, and plus you just look at any script, look at all the scripts out, you read enough scripts, watch enough scripts being filmed, so every time you watch a movie, you're seeing a script, right? Watch a bunch of good movies and tell me how many of these rules are being broken by the protagonist. Not many. Not very often. And not all four. So, there are a bunch of other rules of writing. There's a shit ton out there. You don't have to look very far to find what the rules of writing are. But I feel like I'm a good foundation here, but even then, I'm still open to change my mind a little bit. It is very interesting that he breaks all these rules. It just shows the level of genius of the writer we're talking about. But anyway, so I just want to make it clear to people, if this is your second time watching the podcast, if you're here to get the feedback for the Luffy podcast because you address something there, it's okay to disagree. It's fine. We're all friends. Or at least we're not enemies. And I think it comes down to your definition of a protagonist. From what I gleaned and what you're talking about is a protagonist has to be super strong, always cool, smart, has very few flaws, not comedic, tactical, and not too emotional. No, not at all. That's not what I'm saying. Again, you don't want to break all the rules. It's okay to break one of the rules. I think almost any protagonist out there is going to break one of those four rules. I talked about Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is very close to being the comic relief in those movies just because he's so snarky and his reactions are so good, and he would just pull his gun out and shoot you when you have a sword. And his character arc is flat. So he breaks two of the four rules. One and a half of the four rules for sure. So you're saying that I said every protagonist has to not break any of these rules, and that's not what I said. You can break one of the rules. You can break two of the rules. Depending on how good you are, the better a writer you are, the more of these rules you can break. So, again, I think you're not seeing the totality of what I'm saying here. So I've explained again this one, so maybe you do this time. But you got to look at the big picture. You got to look at the forest and don't get obsessed with just one tree, right? That sounds boring and unrealistic. I don't want every protagonist ever to be like James Bond. Let's look at James Bond. How close is he to being comic relief? Because he has all those shitty puns, right? And he has funny ways of getting out of things. He's dangerously close. He's not really comic relief, but he's dangerously close. Christmas comes more than once a year. Oh. I guess he's not comic relief, but he's an emotionally flat character. Does he ever have any character growth? See, again, this tells me you're not hearing what I'm saying. You use James Bond as an example, but he breaks one of the four rules. right? So he's an emotional. He never has any character progression. He's here and he's here. They tried a couple times when he gets his fiance or wife or whatever she is. The couple times she's been murdered in various iterations of the series. You get a little bit of character growth. I guess the James Craig had the most character growth of any of the versions of James Bond. So maybe if you said Craig's version, because he's not nearly as much comic relief as the rest of them, he has character growth. He makes plans. What were my four? He's not passive, and he's not a dumbass. Well, you could argue about his intelligence. He's not a super genius by any means. He has a certain tactical savvy. So yeah, I think Craig's Bond comes the closest to not breaking any of the rules. Then you have another issue there though, where once you get into live action, you start talking about personal charisma of the actor, the human being playing the role, that kind of blows everything else out of the water. Damon and Spike are vampires on two vampire shows who, if you look at the script, you just look at the words on the page, should be the two most hated characters in television history. And fans love these characters because the actors are hot and charismatic. And, they just have a je ne sais quoi about them. That there's just something about these actors. They could kick a puppy up a flight of stairs and then back down a flight of stairs, and nobody cares. Spike essayed a character in Buffy, and people still love him. Damon did worse. Damon was doing that shit in season 1. At least Spike waited till season 6. Spoiler alert. I mean, they were just horrible. Absolutely horrible characters. Awful people, man. Terrible. Horrendous. And people love them. Because the actors are so charismatic. So that kind of blows everything else out of the water. We start having a problem when we start talking about live action. It's less prevalent in anime, any kind of animation. Now, you can have very delicious performances from voiceover, and to me, it moves the needle for me. Luffy's voiceover actor is so goddamn good that, it moves the needle for me. Right? And that's one of the reasons I didn't want to watch the live action, because it was a different voice and it just threw me for so long. I've finally gotten over it. It took me a couple of years. So then we're talking about an intersection here. Like, we can't have a clinical, sterile conversation about writing, because then that writing gets transferred over to another medium. It gets turned into animation, or it gets turned into live action. And then you start having rule breakers just by stepping onto the set. The actor who plays Damon and the actor who plays Spike, Daniel Craig who plays James Bond, they just move the needle. They kind of blow this shit out of the water, right? So then it becomes a very nuanced, complicated, intersectional conversation that we don't have time for. I'm already running really long. But that's the kind of thing that can happen. So, like, this is a very complicated conversation. I could talk about this all day, but we'll probably need to move on. But so that does make it more complicated. But I think the fact you use James Bond just tells me you're not fully grasping what I'm saying, because he breaks one of the 4 rules. Jotora and Giorni from JoJo are 2 examples of this, and I did not care for either character. Let me see. They definitely were comic relief characters. Their hair was absolutely, completely ridiculous. Ugh. You can't look at them. You can't look at them because they're ridiculous. One of them has a stake for hair, and the other one has 2 ball sacks for hair. What the hell are we doing, man? Let me see. Character arcs are flat for the most part. I think I agree with you on that. They weren't passive. Yeah, I agree with you on that. And they weren't dumbasses. Yeah, for the most part, I think you're right. I will say, I don't think that author is good and beloved because of his character work. I think he's a little weak in the character. I think he's much better at coming up with magic systems and powers and just endlessly inventive ways of using those powers and world building and plotting out season-long arcs and, just episodic arcs that build into a greater thing. He's probably one of the best I've ever seen for having a series of episodic, small 2-episode arcs that when you take the whole thing together forms a full season long story. That's really hard to do. He is a genius at that. His biggest weakness, I would say, would probably be his character work. So I'm with you on that one. They were the James Bond type character. They barely told any jokes, and like I said during the JoJo Part 5 reactions, Girani had barely any personality or character. I rarely think about the coolness of the character. Yeah, that's another thing, too. Talking about steak. They're kind of like all sizzle, no steak, I guess. Is that the phrase? All hat, no cattle. I think it's all sizzle, no steak. But they're a little bit like, they're supposed to look cool. Maybe if I was 20, 30 years younger, I would think they're cool. In the 90s, whenever the hell the manga originally came out. So maybe I'm just not old enough, or I'm not young enough to think that they're cool. Maybe they're just supposed to be cool just by their aura, the aura farming, as the kids say. So yeah, I mean, and another thing too, like again, you can find other things that like break the rules, and they don't really, you can obey all these rules, obey them, and have a terrible story. Or you can break them all, like the One Piece author did, and have a great story. So, again, it's just, as a writer, you want to make life easy on yourself. And you do that by knowing what the rules are, and then selectively choosing to break what you think you can get away with breaking. That's the basic concept. Edit, I didn't finish the video for posting this. We do agree on one thing. One Piece is awesome. Yes, we do. I think there's probably one or two other things in this world we probably agree on. Well, I think your rules are wrong, and Luffy would too. All right. This one, I don't have any idea how to pronounce this, but it's 2A's YU Kumar. Luffy is written to represent pure freedom and adventure, not complexity or intelligence. So whether he's terrible depends on your taste. If you like clever or morally complex main characters, you might not like him as much. Luffy is not intellectually smart, but he has strong emotional instincts. He acts on feeling rather than logic, which is why many people see him as emotionally intelligent but simple-minded. Now, to me, emotionally intelligent means being able to figure out other people's emotions and maybe why they're feeling that way. Like Hermione Granger was a very emotionally intelligent character. She would say, well, she's feeling this, this, and this, and that's why she did this and this. That's what my definition of emotionally intelligent. I don't think it's about your emotions. I think it's your ability to see what other people are feeling and why. So I don't know that Luffy's emotionally intelligent in that way. I agree with everything else you said about him. That's a really good synopsis of who he is. He's more about vibes and vibes, really. Like he lives on vibes. He's all about the vibes, right? So he's about the feelings. He's very emotional. He's ruled by his emotions. I think that's what makes him so powerful. When he gets mad, he's way more powerful. So if he was like emotionally flat, he probably wouldn't be the hero we need, right? So I think that's a very accurate, other than I'm not clear what you mean by emotionally intelligent. Luffy doesn't call himself a hero, but his actions are often heroic. Yeah, I agree. That's a good synopsis of his character. And probably the favorite thing Luffy's ever said about himself was he said he's not a hero, he's a pirate, because a pirate can eat all the food and doesn't have to share. Heroes have to share food. That's my favorite thing. I was on the floor for 5 minutes when he said that. That was hilarious. And it's so true to his character. So, I just love that. And I love Luffy, right? Like, again, like I said, he breaks all the rules, but somehow he still works. I don't know how, but he does. All right, this one is Cameron Ryder Aquarius, I think. I just started the video. I disagree with you at first, but I will hear your ass out before calling out your taste in media. Yeah, I mean, obviously you just started. And it's been 2 hours and you haven't said anything else, so maybe you ended up agreeing with me. But, yeah, this is not about my taste in media. This is... Look, did I use a clickbait title? I feel dirty for saying this. I feel dirty for doing it. It was a clickbait title. I mean, look at how many views I got. I don't want to be a clickbait asshole. I just don't. I don't like it. I didn't think that's what I was doing, I'll be honest with you. Like, I wasn't sitting here, what's the most clickbaity ass title I can use to draw in as many eyeballs as possible? That's not what I did. This is, you know, I guess I didn't put enough thought into it because there's reasons why five. I think I maybe even said 5 reasons, which would be misleading because there's only 4. What the hell is the title? Oh, just why Luffy is a terrible protagonist. Okay, I didn't give how many reasons. Why Luffy is a terrible protagonist. That's clickbait. That's clickbait. That's not really what I'm saying. That's not really the true meaning of the video. It's just that is a manipulative ass title to get people to come in and watch my shit. Yeah, I regret it. I'll be honest with you. It worked. I don't like it. I'm getting punished for it in the comments because people are just reacting off the title without watching the video, clearly. I thought, like, in my, in my notebook, I put why Luffy is a terrible protagonist and why it doesn't matter. But I guess I thought that was too long. See, that would have been a much more accurate title. That's what I was trying to say. That was the synopsis of what I was trying to say. Why Luffy is a terrible protagonist and why it doesn't matter. And I just shortened. I guess I thought it was too long. I don't like long titles, I'll be honest. But this became a clickbait title. That's the issue here. So, yeah, I don't like it. I'm not going to change it now. But, you know. There's even more comments here. Jesus, people are pissed. Oh, boy. So, anyway, back to this one real quick. It's, you know, I blame myself. It was a clickbait title. I apologize. But yeah, that's why, you know, he saw the clickbait title. If he watched the whole thing like he said he would, he got what I was saying. And that's why he didn't leave another comment. You know, okay, yeah, I agree. If people agree, they're not going to, usually they leave. It's only when they disagree that they're going to leave a comment. Which is why people say asshole shit so they can get people to leave comments. Because it helps me when you leave a comment, right? But yeah, that's on me. I won't do it again. This is probably it's a tarot card bot. I'm not sure because I answered them and they haven't come back or anything. I answered them almost immediately too. But the tarot features the Fool Arcania. This archetype carries a literal spark of the divine, defying the world's rationality while simultaneously commanding it. It is truly sublime both philosophically and through a spiritual, esoteric lens. Probably AI bot. If you are an AI bot, F you. If you're not, my apologies. I did leave a comment. This is Klaus. I never got your connection between it's being a comedy and something alike and not being able to get very emotional on the series because of it. I never got this problem as long as the writing isn't shit. I love Klaus. He's the one. He's the one that got me into One Piece in the first place. He only watches up to the time skip and he stops. He apparently he hates the series after the time skip. So he only watches the first half. Like he said, it became shit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can explain it. I can't understand it for you. But for me, you can make us laugh or you can make us cry, but you can't do both. You know, like I said, it's a scale that only has one bar. Comedy is on one side, drama's on the other, and you have one bar. If you get closer to comedy, you're getting further away from drama. If you get closer to drama, you're getting further away from comedy. You can't have it all. You can't have it all in this world. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Much as you want to. Believe me, I do. Trust me, I want to, but I can't. None of us can. You gotta pick one. So, you know, they should pick one. Now, like I said, if you're a super genius, like this author is, then you can break all the rules, including the comedy rule, and still have an awesome series. So, and an awesome character. So, you know, you can do that. But you got to be a genius, and I'm not one. So, like I said, if you're not a super genius, make life easy on yourself. That's all I'm saying. All right, and the final comment for now comes from Naruto Smithers or something like that. I'm not sure. The text is small, and you know you don't need to see me leaning up towards the camera to read that shit. So, I'm the correct distance from the camera here. You grind my gears. Wink emoji. Well, at least you didn't go Gear 5 on me. Let me refresh one more time, see if we got any more comments. And I think we're good. All right, well, I'm sure there'll be more comments. We'll get to that later, but this podcast is way too long.